Hello, welcome to stage 3 of the Illbleed tutorial with Woodpuppets. I have assumed that you have bought healing items before you've begun this stage. This should be a thing you should do before every single stage from this point onwards, even if you're doing, like, proper attempts. There are forced encounters in stages from this point onwards, and you will die if you don't buy healing items, because in theory you could get through all the combat without getting hit and not bleeding to death. In practice, no, you're gonna get hit by some gauze, and probably some health too. Maybe even a heart rate restoring item if you need to. So take this line through the first area, no traps will hit you, and then we need to identify our pattern.
So starting off here in this first hallway, honestly it's more efficient to just tag absolutely every trap. You can try and work it out, I don't bother, usually. I just tag everything and go from there, you've got the adrenaline to burn.
So pattern A, it'll be the second chainsaw on the left side, and the back right saw blade on the right there, and then the picture above the chainsaw case on the left side, and that is all three of the scares in the opening area, so you can traipse right on to get the axe. And on pattern B, the first scare you'll be looking for here is the first saw blade on the right side. That's why I just scattershot everything and see where the dice fall. So if the first saw blade here triggers on the right, you're on pattern B. Then it's the final chainsaw on the left side. I didn't get it initially in my scattershot tagging of everything, so don't mind that. And then the final scare is actually up the stairs. It's this picture above the chainsaw case, but this one has a quirk. It's avoidable if you bank hard right around it. And now pattern C. Pattern C is the reason you might need to be careful coming in. If you walk in and you immediately get a side scare going off, you're probably on pattern C because it will be the first chainsaw, and then it will be the back saw blade, which makes it really easy to know precisely what you need to tag. So if you know this, you can avoid doing a scattershot tag approach. And the final scare is also the picture above the case. You may notice that the final case there has no scares in it, regardless of what pattern you're on. So now we're back to pattern A for the following hallway. On pattern A, you will need to immediately tag this box. It's got a fairly large hitbox. And this bloodstain and that wall with the holes where the light is shining through. These are all scares on pattern A. Pattern A has a lot of this large cluster of shit going on here.
Cool. Cool.
Then it's this window. There's two scares actually clustered very close here. Trying to pick the right one out is an exercise in wasting your time. Just tag both. Then you want to get the ceiling of all things, like this, the empty ceiling space. It's a scare. I know, it's weird.
Cool.
And then you want to get the window on the left, and there's a bunch of scares sort of hanging around this window here, but you can avoid all of them if you bank the corner really hard. That is not as hard as you can even do it, but nevertheless, if you stick hard right here, that is all the way through that hallway on pattern A.
On pattern B, there's absolutely no scares right the way through to the window, so you can just skip the first box and bloodstain entirely. Then it's both of the first two window scares, so you don't need to worry about trying to aim for anyone in particular anyway.
Cool.
And the next two scares are more abstract. It's the ceiling one again, with no, like, visible object to attach to, and it's the holes on the right side, but it's right near an item that's likely to pick up the horror monitor, so just mash, you'll probably get both. Like there, I got both by accident, because that is a thing that will happen
Cool.
when you're trying to scope out this particular scare.
Cool.
And then it's the bloodstain on the floor and the window on the left.
Cool. Cool.
The rest of the scares can be avoided by banking hard right. This box is also a scare, but this is avoidable if you bank the corner. This dodge is harder than the other ones, but it is doable. And for pattern C, it's the bloodstain and the ceiling kind of near the bloodstain. You can't really get it from the first corner.
You need to walk forward a bit here, and then you can get it. It's again like a blank ceiling trap. There's no sort of physical object to indicate that it's a trap, which is kind of rude, but, well, that's the game. It's no longer the windows here, but it is the holes, and again, it's easy to not get it and instead get the item that's kind of near it, so just tag multiple times and it'll be fine. And here you want to get the left window,
Cool.
and both windows in the back. These are not avoidable by, like, banking the corner. So you do just kind of have to tag everything and sit through every single scare that goes off. And from there, you're good to go for pattern C.
And in the next hallway, there is only one trap, and A and B share the same one.
It's the final window on the left here.
Cool.
Pattern C has only a slight variation. It's the second window rather than the last one.
Cool.
This next trap is consistent across all patterns, but it can be avoided by banking hard right around the wall, although the line you need to take to avoid it can be more finicky than you'd expect. So you take that guy's wood, and then you get into a fight with him. And this is where it becomes important to know how an element of Illbleed's combat works, which is that normal enemies don't die unless they are counter-hit, as in they start to do an attack animation and they get knocked out of it by your attack. They kind of reel back. Enemies don't die unless that counter-hit animation is present, like it's not happening. But I am doing damage. Once an enemy has had enough damage dealt to it, then you need a counter-hit like that reel back, and then they'll fall over and die. Has to be that way. This next trap is also consistent across all patterns, so don't worry about that. A note on counter hits. They are mostly random. While you do have to knock an enemy out of their attack animation to get one, whether or not you get one is mostly just random, so there is a large luck element to how long combat takes in this game. This next bit I'm showing only pattern C because while the exact traps differ depending on pattern, the approach is identical across all three. Always tag these two on the ground and bank hard left. Whether or not the front one or the back one goes off changes between patterns, but the approach doesn't change. Pattern C, however, has a unique quirk, which is this fight. This doesn't happen on patterns A and B, which technically makes pattern C the worst pattern you can get because it has an extra fight in it. This fight is also a complete pain because this is the only time you would normally have to fight Woodpuppets in a run otherwise. They can do a lot of damage, they can keep you off the button real easy, it's a big mess. Following on from that, this is one of the only regional differences in Illbleed. The solution to this puzzle is different in the Japanese version of the game. Also, take this opportunity to heal up when you get to this menu, now is a good time to do it. In the Japanese version, the solution to this puzzle is 1564. I don't remember what the solution is for the American version, it doesn't matter, it doesn't make a large difference, just remember that it's a different thing if you're playing the English version, okay? Okay. And now, this hallway on pattern A. This is where pattern diversity comes back, in full force. On pattern A, it's the second light on the ceiling. That's it. There's only one trap in this hallway. It's always a light. It moves depending on the pattern. And for the second conveyor belt on pattern A, the right pipe here is the first thing you should tag. And then you can safely strut on to the next set of traps. There's nothing on this side. I sort of take some time here to patiently scope this out because I got a bit confused, but this is wrong for pattern A. But there is a trap there on other patterns. It's invisible. It's lovely like that. Now, once you reach this point, there are two traps in close proximity to each other, the pipe and the empty space of the bend. And then you can safely advance to the end.
On pattern B, the light trap is the light on this bend.
Cool.
And then in the conveyor belt room, the trap is in fact the empty space on the first bend. There are going to be quite a few of those. And the pipe immediately visible from that bend. A pipe on the right here.
Cool.
And the final pipe that's visible here.
Cool.
And that's pattern B. For pattern C, you want the light just before the bend.
Cool.
This is an incorrect tag, I'm getting confused myself here. But it is the pipe immediately on this first bend. And this is the one that is likely to trip you up because the hitbox for it sucks. You need to bank left here to be able to get this trap. I can't target it from here because you need to get uncomfortably close to it to tag it with the horror monitor because it's the empty space on the bend itself. That one is likely to catch you out if you don't know specifically what you're trying to aim at. And then it's just this pipe on the left. And then there are no more traps on pattern C. Hooray!
Thankfully, pattern variations stop mattering from this point, so the rest of this will be focused on combat and avoiding encounters where you can. So all you need to do now is advance to the Woodman hunting contest. There are no traps between you and it. It's just a lot of walking.
Okay, welcome back. You're now being chased around a big place full of boxes by woodcutter dudes.
And this is where we will learn map freezing. So when you open the map, enemies that are chasing you in an environment will freeze. Like so. This allows you to rapidly open the map over and over again to freeze enemies in place. This is technically possible on the first stage with Bambalo, but it becomes most useful here because you really have to do it to avoid encounters in a run. And when they get behind you, you want to start relying on your audio to sort of approximate the distance between you, because you can't really see that far behind you, so they can sneak up on you and back attack you, and then they'll start a fight which you can't run from because you're in wood puppet form. You want to keep the first guy close to you, but not so close that it causes an encounter, obviously. Because while one guy is following you, it can't spawn future woodcutters in. Like, there is one woodcutter that can spawn around this corner if one isn't already following you. This is something that's hard to explain in words. You kind of need the feel for it, and it's very common to get this second spawn here if the first guy isn't still following you. It's very difficult to keep him going for that long. And frankly, on this take, I had to map freeze a lot to get through that guy because he kind of stood in a weird place. And keep doing it to avoid encounters. I promise it looks slow, but it's worth it. Once you reach about halfway point of that hallway there, you're good for now. The cutscene means you are definitely safe. That despawns woodcutters. The balance of going fast in this section is based on how you use your map freezes. You don't want to use it too much, because every single time you open the map, you cause a menu, which is slow. But you need to use it sometimes, otherwise you'll cause encounters, so you have to get the balance right. And there's no way for me to give like a prescriptive answer to that question, because the way enemies will move around is slightly random, so you have to make your own decisions here. Okay, so for this next dodge coming up, you want to try and map freeze preemptively as soon as you see this guy, because if you allow him more time to move, he'll get in the middle of this very narrow passageway and not allow you to pass around on the outside like this. This is the most reliable way to deal with this guy. And then you do need to sort of map freeze with some judgment in order to sort of keep him a reasonable distance behind you, because you want to carry this guy with you for as long as you possibly can to prevent future spawns from happening. I'm gonna present the map freezing in full, even though it is mostly just walking, so you guys can maybe get the feel for the timing. If you turn right at that sign, that's where you find Randy if you're doing the good ending category, which I'm not doing a tutorial for because it differs in basically no interesting ways.
Like, this is actually fairly instructive because I do this wrong on this take, which causes this guy to spawn in because I didn't successfully keep the first guy following me. That's fine. If he spawns, do what I'm doing right now, where I try and get him on one side of the tunnel, and then keep him there with repeated map freezing. It's faster to just keep the first guy, but if you don't, that's your best backup. Once you've made it to the locker room, you are still not safe. You now have to win fights against hiding lumberjacks. These fights are unavoidable, and tagging them doesn't do anything because you can't be fear knocked down while you're in Woodpuppet mode. The same rules for fights still apply here. You need a counter hit to kill them. What is important to know is that you get a different and probably better attack if you use the shoot button while you're a Woodpuppet, where you flail your arms around and assert dominance by T-posing. The regular melee attack button gets you a different and slightly worse kicking move. A lot of people don't know this move exists, because why would you fire a gun when you don't have one? But the same rules apply. You still need a counter hit to kill, so there's a large luck element to these fights. This trap is consistent across patterns. There is a trap on this floor over here, which can be a bit difficult to hit given the corner. And there will be at least one more fight. Some patterns, I don't remember which ones off the top of my head and it's not in my notes, have 3 fights instead of 2 in this locker room. The strategy for these lumberjack fights is mostly just to stick to their shoulders, because you can kind of prevent them from getting a clean attack off on you if you sort of circle around them with your T-pose move. That's really as much strategy as you're getting here, otherwise you're just fishing for counter hits and hoping they turn up.
If you're beat up and bleeding after those fights, now is a good time to heal before the boss fight. The boss isn't too challenging and can be killed quite consistently without taking damage, so if you want to bet that you can beat the boss and escape before you bleed to death, feel free to take that gamble. And now for the boss itself. The strategy is you park yourself in this corner here. First go for 2 hits and dodge whatever attack comes your way. If they go for the big sweep, you can get a 3-hit combo off after dodging. Any other attack, only go for 2 hits. That's the basic strategy. The one quirk to this that's worth knowing is that while you do a dodge, do not mash attack while you're doing it. Let the dodge complete. You can attack cancel dodges early in Illbleed, and if you do that, you'll probably get hit out of your attack swing and take damage when you don't need to. So let your dodge rock a little bit before you try and swing to be completely safe. Otherwise, this boss is fairly easy and quite consistent to do damageless. And that's the end of the stage. All you have to do now is run to the exit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next stage.